Hey there, my favorite fellow YouTubers. Good to see you today, coming to you on this afternoon from beautiful Lebanon, Indiana, just northwest of Indianapolis. Spectacular Boone County Courthouse behind me. The square here in Lebanon just underwent an $11 million renovation. It's absolutely spectacular, and even more spectacular because Miraculous Mel Kenyon lives nearby. He lists Lebanon as his hometown, and we're going to chat with him today. I'm so excited. Stand by. This is going to get good. I hear something going on in there. 3K Racing Enterprises Inc., Lebanon, Indiana. Welcome aboard.
Great race cars. But, we built somewhere around 400 cars, mostly midgets, sprint cars, dirt cars, Indy cars, and
All out of this shop.
yeah, and they got the Eagle from Dan Gurney, and we finished it here. In fact, it was a Ford off-him to start with, and then we converted it to a Ford in '73 and finished fourth with it, sorry. And we finished with the Indy cars. We were there for 10 years. And we have a third, 2/4, a fifth, a sixth, and an eighth. Got run over by John Cock once. And
I saw that. I saw the video of that just recently, as a matter of fact. But how long have you been operating out of this shop?
since '69.
Since 1969. Wow, that's incredible.
And as we made money, we kept adding on to the buildings.
I did want to just thank you so much. This is an honor for me to be here speaking with you. I'm very grateful you carved out a little time for me. Your story, your motorsports story is incredible, spectacular, amazing, all of the above. I don't even know where to start with you, but we got to dig in somewhere. So you looked absolutely great. I do know you're coming up on what I believe is your 88th birthday.
Right, April 15th, tax day.
How do you feel?
I'm energetic. I take care of 10 race cars, so I got to feel decent.
Okay, so you're still out here in the shop every day.
Yep,
At 88 years young.
yep. And brother's 2 years younger.
Wow.
So we had hopefully had this thing sold last year, our race cars, 3K Racing, and the COVID-19 finished that off. So
Yeah.
they never showed up, so I don't blame them.
Yeah, I understand. But how many cars are you taking care of right now?
It was 11, we sold one, so we're down to 10 now,
Wow.
all midgets. And it's all cars that we built.
So your brother, so you started, if I have this right, you started racing stock cars in about 1954?
55.
55, okay. And then your brother got mustered out of the Air Force? And
To be honest, I started in the modifieds in 53, and then with the midgets in 55. And my brother came home from the service and talked him into spending his money on a race car, and so I got into midgets then steady in 68, 66 actually. And then we've been building most of our own cars, or at least modifying some, and taking care of our own. We have somewhere around 400 cars that we built between the Indy cars and the sprint cars and dirt cars and midgets. And mostly midgets. That's our biggest bag, the midgets.
I've always known that. Where did this magic begin for you? The bug for racing. I mean, somewhere in the early 50s. Where did this happen for you?
In 1953, I went to a midget race in Marion, Iowa, sorry. And a guy that won the race turned around to look see how far he won it by, and ran over a car slowing down and flipped and squashed him between the cars, in the car, and he died.
Oh my Lord.
And Harley Phillips died that day. And we lived in.
And then you said, geez, I ought to try this.
Yeah, and again, stood at the doorway of a garage getting a midget built, a general service garage. And they here, come in and hold this thing while I tack it. All of a sudden I'm helping. And he took me to the racetracks with him And I ended up driving home a lot of times when he was tired. A lot of famous drivers drove for him, and Dick Elliott was his name. And so that's how I got introduced into racing. And I thought, surely, he kept having different drivers all the time. And I thought, when I was of age, I thought, he put me in his car, haha.
And the rest
And so we had to
is
follow him.
history.
And we beat all the hot rods and everything. And even on pavement at Rockford, Illinois, we won the mid-season championship there. And and so we progressed from there. And that's my national car, the 61 car. And got a third to fifth place.
Where did the number 61 come from?
The guy that I started racing with back in Bettendorf, Iowa, the number was on, 61 was on his car. And when I bought that car from him, it had 61 on it. And of course, if we won the championship, we had number 1 on our doors. But 61 is our permanent number. And that national car has been driven by a lot of different people. When I was 75 years old, I had to quit driving, my wife said. And my billfold also said so. But so we rent that car out now. And that goes 175 mile an hour down the straightaway. And we upped the track record at Phoenix at 142. So 150 stitches to put my face back on. And my nose, and part of it fell off again. If you will get that in 6 months, I was back in a race car. Heck with the nose.
That's incredible.
I'm still trying to smooth my face up in various spots that are still from the fire lumpy.
Yeah, you look great. So I'm looking at some of my notes here. I know you won the Turkey Night Grand Prix in 1963, finished second in the USAC National points that year. Then you turned right around and won the USAC National Midget title in 64.
7 times.
And I know, 7 times in total. But winning that first championship in 64, and now you're really on your way. You're starting to delve into the Indy Cars. You've got 10 Indy Car starts. You head off to Langhorne.
Yep.
June 20th, 1965, you were driving a Roadster on the Langhorne Mile, a day that changed your world forever. What do you remember about that crash? I know you were knocked unconscious, but what do you remember?
The same car Bill Vukovich Sr. died in.
What?
In 55.
That's the car, Roadster you were driving?
Yeah, it's a car.
Are you kidding me? The number 4 car it was when Vuki drove it in 55.
And that was for Lindsey Hopkins, who I ended up driving for.
It was in that car.
But
What happened?
it was a good Roadster, handling good, 4 bars, suspension, same way our midgets were at that time, half bars. And I was doing really well, qualified, I think, 12th. And was doing really well, and all of a sudden the motor let go. And I headed for the infield with the left hand and stuck my right hand up in the air, but running in my own slop, if you will. The car spun around, bounced off the fence, turned around the right direction, was down to about 30 mile an hour. When Ralph Liguori and Herdebees were having a private battle, and they got into my oil, and they ran over me, of course, and the car, of course, caught fire. And we slid into the infield, and the flames almost went out. Those 2 guys bailed out of their cars and ran away. And
Did either of them check on you?
no, they just ran off. They didn't want to get burned either. The guy that was leading the race, he was the champion motorcycle driver.
Oh, Joe Leonard.
Joe Leonard. And he was leading the race, and he pulled in the infield and jumped out of his car.
Wait a minute, hold on a minute. You mean to tell me the guy leading the race stopped his car to help you?
Yeah, actually, he pulled up, stopped near the car, jumped out, and ran over to help me. The 2 guys in jeans and T-shirts tried to help him also.
Who were the jeans and T-shirt guys?
I
Just
don't remember their names.
hanging around in the infield or something?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they ran over and tried to help, but they couldn't get me out because the steering wheels didn't come off at that time. Now they all come off.
Sure.
Everything, all the steering wheels come off now. But they didn't come off. And it was 95 degrees in the shade that day, and I had a fireman suit on that I barely could finish a midget race in, and I knew I'd never be able to finish the Indy Car race, 2-hour, 3-hour race. So I put the treated cotton suit on.
Oh, no.
And, and of course, unconscious, I didn't bail out like the other two guys did. My head hit the roll bar, I guess, when he clubbed me from behind. And I broke the bladder, which nowadays you don't break bladders either.
Right, right.
And I went to sleep, and they tried to get me out, but couldn't get me out because the steering wheel didn't come off, and finally got too hot and they had to leave. And then a Jeep showed up with fire bottles in it. Everybody grabbed a bottle and put the fire out. I was only in the fire 3 minutes, but I was 60% burnt, 40% third degree. Ended up losing my fingers.
All of them on your right hand?
Left hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you right or left-handed?
Either way.
Either way, no, I guess you have to accommodate that.
I was either way at that time.
Really?
Yes, I could write with the left hand as well as the right hand.
That's interesting.
And then they kept trimming in the burn hospital. Actually, the hospital we went to, Lower Bucks County Hospital in Philadelphia, never had any facilities to treat a badly burned person. The doctors had never treated a badly burned person, so USAC and the officials got together and sent me to the Army Burn Hospital in San Antonio, Texas, where Jim Hurtubise was just a year before me. And he got burned. When my first Indy Car ride at Milwaukee, I finished 5th, and that's where Jim Hurtubise got burnt in '64. And so then we were burn buddies, if you will. We were teammates in '65. And of course, then I ended up getting burnt and sent down to the same place he was. And they take you into the physical therapy department, and they submerge you into a stainless steel tank filled with 9-degree water. And I was covered from head to foot with the surfing fluorescent bandages to supposedly help my body.
How did you deal with the pain that must come with that?
It's unbelievable. You don't want to get burnt.
I can only imagine.
And after they soaked me in that tub for an hour, and they
Oh, my
got all
God.
these bandages loose, and they all slid right off. Fantastic.
Oh,
My
Lord.
gloves were still on, the golfing gloves never shrunk to my hands. They pulled the glove off, and all the skin stuff came with them. And so then, after you get all the bandages and stuff off, they take straight edge razors and they go over your body and shave all your body for scabs and blisters off.
Oh, my God.
Not nice.
Oh,
And
I can't
to the
imagine.
room and 12 doctors estimate how long you're going to be there depending on your burns and so forth. And they said, you're going to be here 9 months and 3 months rehab afterwards probably.
Okay, I'm just going to stop you just for a moment, but isn't there somewhere in there when you're asking the questions inside your head, hey, maybe this isn't for me, maybe I should head in a different direction?
No.
That never came to you?
No.
No.
Every other day you go to the tank for soaking and trimming and lifting of burned flesh and so forth. And you yelled, most of my voice ended up in the burn board there. It's very, very mellow now, if you will. I can hardly talk loud from yelling so much. So I was ready to die for the 3rd time. In fact, my grafts, they were getting all hot and almost as burns themselves. And where they took all the skin off, and where they all put all the skin on my body, it was all loosening up and sliding around. I was going to lose them. And my wife said, you know, there's somebody that can help you. And incidentally, she got one of those phone calls a wife doesn't like to get. And when she came and saw me in the Philadelphia hospital, and when she walked in, she didn't recognize the guy she married a year and 4 months before. And it was a shock to her, of course, but then all the officials and stuff got me to go down to San Antonio, Texas, and Firestone. I was on their tires at the time, so they flew me down in their Beechcraft. And when you land there, they meet you there with an ambulance and so forth, and right to the hospital again, down to the tank where you soak, and they trim you all up, shave all your body fur and scabs and blisters off. Big introduction to the burn hospital there too. Finally, he's not going to make it, we got to do something else. So they put me to sleep, fortunately, and I'd wake up in an hour or so after they got done working on me, And the pain was always there. But at least all the work as they were trimming me and skinning me and so forth. And I was really progressing well. The first time I almost died in that bonfire, and then at the burn hospital, and then again at the burn hospital. And my wife says, hey, there's somebody that can help you if you're willing. And I says, well, I'm willing.
I'll bet you were.
And so with her help, I turned what was left of my life over to the Lord, telling him to do what he wanted to do with it, not what I wanted him to do with it. And I started healing just that quick. I had pus pockets anywhere from an inch and a half long where they'd slide the scissors in, snip it, and scrape it out. That was a mess. All my grafts were loose, and my donor sites were bad. In a week and a half's time, I was out of that hospital. Wow.
Wow.
A week and a half from being such a miserable mess, ready to die. And I came home probably a week or so early. They just put a skin graft on my hand here, little hand.
The skin graft on that hand? Yeah. Your left hand?
And my left arm up through the shoulder into my chest. My legs from the groin down to the ankles. And this hand was burnt too. All the thumbs and fingernails came off. And as I was getting better, fingernails and stuff came back, and I had something to scratch with. And I was busy scratching away on my face one day, and my nose fell off. Oh my, it's going to fall off anyway, but I just ended up the time on it a bit. And so I was a miserable individual, and my wife was there and came to feed me 3 times a day and sort of take care of me.
You know, as difficult as this was on you, and I know it was, I bet it was equally difficult on her.
More so maybe.
Yeah.
Because she had to put up with my hollering and complaining and so forth.
Well, it must have been hard for her to see you in such pain, too.
Yeah,
That's very difficult.
She got a job at the hospital there doing some work for them, so she lived in a barracks about a mile away, walked back and forth 3 times a day. And after the Lord decided to send me in a different direction, I healed up quick, but a guy that I started racing with in the modifieds, Hal Schroeder, his kidneys gave him trouble, and he was in a hospital ready to die also, and we talked back and forth on the telephone, but he did die, and so I talked to them, people in the hospital, to maybe get out of the hospital a week or so early, and then Goodyear came down and flew, Bear Manufacturing, that lines up all the race cars, they flew me home in their Beechcraft, and we landed at the Moline Airport, and police escort to the middle of the Mississippi River, and then they took me to Bettendorf, where Hal Schroeder was getting buried. A tough way to come home, but it was better than being in the hospital.
Sure.
And so I kind of had to take care of myself, trim this thing and soak it once a day and so forth, and went on from there. But it's a miracle that the Lord decided to take care of me in 3 months' time out of that hospital instead of 9 months. And then to come home for a funeral. But then I started going to a local gymnasium, exercise gym, to rehab, and heck, I can do all this myself at home twice as much and all day, so I went back to our mobile home and worked on myself. So anyway, in 3 months' time, I was out of the hospital instead of 9 months. And in 7 months, I was in a race car again, and 8 months in a midget. 8 months, I was back at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
In 1966.
I came back, and the car that John Cock had traded in, Lindsey Hopkins decided to put me in that car, which is a rear engine car. And the first one in a rear engine car, so I had to take the last phase of my driver's test over again. And keeping it down to the required speed limits was hard to do. And I ended up qualifying for the race then in 65, and
Wouldn't that be 66?
66, you're right.
66, yeah.
65, I got out of the hospital.
Right.
Anyway, back in the race in this rear engine car, and I passed the driver's test and was actually running second behind Graham Hill, that other rookie from England.
Mm-hmm.
and I plugged a nozzle in the engine. Plugged it, fortunately. So I ran on 3 cylinders for 70 laps and went from second a little bit back, and ended up finishing the race in 5th place. Wow, all right.
In your first Indianapolis 500 debut,
Right.
after the big crash. Now, that's what you have an incredible story across the board, but this to me is what's so incredible in that you won a midget title in 64, you got hurt in 65, finished 5th in the Indy 500 in 66, and after you got hurt,
Yeah.
with all the pain, all the things you went through, you come back and won 6 more national championships with USAC, all-time USAC midget winner with 111 USAC midget national victories, all-time third on the all-time USAC win list behind only A.J. Foyt and Rich Vogler, yet you did all that after the accident. That is so, that sounds like a major motion picture to me.
With no fingers, huh?
And with no fingers.
They kept trimming them off. Well, that thing is sure getting lighter. That's the first thing I said, it's sure light. But they had it kept wrapped up in a big bally bandage like a boxing glove, and I kept my arm this way. So when I got home, the left elbow was glued together.
Glued together?
Couldn't lift, yeah.
Ugh.
I can show you. It was glued together here.
Wow.
They trimmed it loose. That's still me.
That's still you?
And it burned up into my chest area here.
Did you learn did the pain eventually subside on some level, or did you just learn to deal with it?
You had to learn to deal with it, but it did subside.
Yeah.
Unless you aggravated it. My glove had pulled off. At that time, there was just a glove with a socket on it and a bushing and a pin on the steering wheel. But we ended up putting a cuff on the glove and laced it up so it wouldn't come off anymore.
Well, didn't you guys invent some sort of grommet that attached to the wheel?
That's this glove with a socket on it. And
Okay.
a rubber bushing in it, pin on the steering wheel so you could steer like a spinner on a steering wheel. After I quit driving in 75 years old in 2004, I rent the car out now to various people to drive indoors as well as outdoors. And a lot of people for their race cars get up to $9,000 for a race. And I just really economically, so I ask them $1,000 and they buy the tires.
Wow. That's a bargain in this day and age.
And if they bend it or break it, then they got to pay for the repairs. So
Does racing still enthuse you, excite you the way it did, I don't know, 40 years ago? Do you still?
again, we've won 394 feature events.
394 feature events in midgets.
Midgets, but we've got 632 second and third places.
Oh my God, those numbers are
Times a year. It
amazing.
doesn't take long, you know.
Yeah.
But again,